Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Apologies for our extremely early hour starting this workshop at 8:30. We are the first accelerator workshop of this year's World Circular Economy Forum. Press the accelerator slightly faster than everybody else. It's why we're starting early. It's great to see we've got a big audience present here in the room and also a big audience online with us today as well. One of the reasons for that is that this is an extremely important topic. For those of you who were present over the last 2 days in the forum, the word finance has been mentioned repeatedly, finding ways to redirect finance, providing access to finance to circular projects. Of course, if it was easy as taking our big finance hose and redirecting it towards circularity, then we would be there already. This is undoubtedly a very complex topic. But the world of finance, of course, itself is a complex and many-headed beast with many different forms of finance, from private and public, loans, grants, blended finance, bonds, equity, etc. The finance industry itself, the finance sector, of course, much like every other sector in our economy, is very wedded to our linear structure for the economy. This will take significant change to understand the circular economy. And circular solutions themselves, by their very nature, are innovative, are a step change, are something new and different. And of course, that comes with inherent risk. So the world of sustainable finance and how we can link that to circularity is an extremely important topic. So my name is Simon Clement, and I'm head of circular economy at Europe. Circular economy for us is an extremely important topic. We work with a number of partners and a number of cities in this area. Sorry, technical problems, trying to make the slides work. Second. There will be technical problems throughout today's show, unfortunately. That's to be expected. Alina, could you give me some distance? So your fingers work in my good, okay. All right, so quickly to take you through the agenda today. I'm not a sustainable finance expert, I'm not a business expert, so thankfully we have an excellent panel lineup of experts. We will kick off shortly with 2 introductory presentations. First from Marvin Lusek from Circular Economy on understanding circular impact. And we will then pass across to Guido Moravero Milanesi from DG FISMA to give us a bit of background around the taxonomy and other elements of EU regulation and legislation that are relevant in the finance area. There'll be a short opportunity for questions at this stage, and then we will pass across to a very interesting part of our program where we will look at a couple of interesting success stories where circular startups have found that the importance of identifying their impact, measuring their impact, has been really critical in channeling investment into what they do. We will hear from both the investment and the project managers side. And then we will finish up with an interactive session with yet another success story from Iceland this time, with an opportunity for everyone to participate. We should finish at 10 o'clock. That's our plan. I know other people have got sessions to go to. Quick few notes on housekeeping. As mentioned, please try to keep quiet if possible over the course of this. You'll have seen when you came in that there was a list, an attendance list. If you haven't signed that yet, then please do sign it. There will be an opportunity to ask questions, those online through the Q&A. Those in the room, you can actually use your hands and even mouth, potentially. Another point to mention, the webinar will be recorded. So if anyone has a problem with this, please raise their voices now. Okay. Just before we kick off with the program itself, to give you a bit of background to why we're here, hosting organisation for this. This webinar is being organised by the Circular Investment Readiness Network. And this network is itself the daughter of 2 called PDA projects. These are 2 European funded, Horizon Europe funded project development assistance projects. The 2 logos in the bottom right-hand corner are the 2 projects, Circular Invest and Definite CCRI. And these 2 projects are trying to address a gap that circular project developers have. So how can they bring their circular solutions to the market? How do good ideas turn into bankable ideas effectively? Both of these projects are trying to provide assistance to those project developers to overcome these challenges
and allow them ultimately to access finance. One of these projects, Circular Invest, currently has all the applications open. So if there are any project developers looking to try to improve the way that their project can attract funding, then please come to us. The call is open until the 13th of September this year. There's more information to be found on the website that's included here, or if you want to talk to me or any of the colleagues working on the project as well. So as mentioned, this webinar is being organised by the Circular Investment Readiness Network, by CIRN. So just to give you a very quick introduction to this, this is a network that's been set up by these two projects. Here you can see a list of the partners that are involved in organising this. I won't read them out, but you can see the logos. And quickly, the purpose of the network is to try to support circular economy projects in overcoming challenges related to development and investment readiness. And the way that we try to do this is primarily through sharing insights, sharing expertise, and trying to foster collaboration between those who are part of the network. And this workshop is an example of exactly that. If you're interested in participating, there's a QR code on the screen now that you can use. And I would encourage everybody to join up to our community of practice. There will be, over the course of the year, 2 further webinars organised by the network. The next one in June on investment. And then hopefully in September or later this year, we'll be looking at pitching your project to a jury as well. So if you're interested in finding out more, have a look at the website with this QR code. Excellent. Okay, so let's move on to the purpose of today's session itself. Our overall objective relates to how we are measuring the impact of circular projects. So specifically, we will be looking to explore how measuring those impacts can maximize circular benefits, but also attract investment, importantly. We'll be looking at how, within this framework, we need to navigate EU regulations and compliance, looking particularly at the taxonomy. Then also, as mentioned, to provide some success stories to demonstrate that measuring impact can help in a big way to attract investment in what you're doing. Okay, so that's enough for me from the time being. I'll pass across to our first speaker. So Marvin, I would ask you want to come up and begin your presentation.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Marvin Usik. I'm working at Circular Economy Foundation, leading our finance initiatives. And I was asked to maybe zoom out a bit again and explain what actually circular impact is. So I know that I'm preaching to the choir here because you all know, of course, why the circular economy is important. But anyway, let me just also highlight that again. So I want you actually to remember maybe 3 things today. And that's the first question is, why are we actually thinking and using the circular economy concept? Because circular impact can mean environmental, social, and economic impact. It's not either of them, it's all them all together. The second thing that I want you to remember is, how can we actually create circular impact? And that's already well explained, of course. We need to invest more in circular economy projects, and Circular Invest and definitely the Circular Investment Readiness Network are doing just that. And the third thing Simon already touched upon is, what do we actually need next? And that is, we need to measure the impact. We need to report the impact in order to really channel funding to circular impact projects. So let me zoom in on the first element of it. So why the circular economy and what does circular impact mean? Environmental impact. Less material extraction protects and regenerates ecosystems and supports biodiversity. Why actually? It's interesting because 70% of the global greenhouse gas emissions that we have, like our circularity gap report shows from a circular economy, are directly linked to material handling. So if we are able to cut virgin material use just by 28%, a third, we will actually be able to reduce emissions by 39%, while still satisfying actual social needs. So that means that the social element does not have to suffer from it. That's the environmental impact part, right? Circular economy is not separate to that. The social impact element of it is important to highlight because the circular economy isn't socially just by default. But we can make it that way. You know, you can be 100% circular, if you will, and only use recycled materials, but still offer jobs that are maybe not having the best working conditions, or you pay low salaries. So what does social impact actually mean, and how can we achieve that? One thing that we also heard a lot in the last 2 days is really shifting away from material intensive work towards more labor intensive activities. What does it mean? You know, when actually repairing activities which are labor intensive become a bit cheaper and materials become more expensive, then we can actually achieve more social impact. What does it effectively mean if we talk about the numbers? What's the actual impact? Circular practices can create a net total of 7 to 8 million new jobs by 2030. That's what our Circular Jobs Initiative has calculated together with the ILO. And to make it a bit more tangible, how that is actually possible is a couple of numbers. So if we would need to handle 10,000 tons of goods, how many jobs would be created if we really use just end-of-life activities like landfilling, right? You just need 1 to 6 people who actually, you know, travel somewhere on a landfill, and that's it. But if you engage in actual recycling activities, trying to split the different materials and resources, you already need 36 jobs. But if you really engage in high-value activities like reuse, refurbish, repairing, and so on, it would create 300 jobs. So this just gives a bit of a dimension on how we can also create social impact with activities. What is also important, and especially when we talk about the financial sector, it also has to make economic sense, right? So the economic impact needs to be highlighted. And the circular economy is actually an opportunity also for investors. We need to understand that it's a new kind of resilient growth with sustainable production and new sustainable consumption habits. I think many of you are aware who have engaged in this, that there is also a lot of new business models, right? So the circular economy can create new markets through innovative business models, like focusing more on the service and not the product. You know, who needs the car? You don't need to own the car. You want to actually come from A to B. You know, you actually need the service, and we see it. You know, like in the end, examples like Uber or Airbnb, successful businesses, in a way, you know, they shift to services. Whether they're really circular, that's another question at this point. But you see that there's new opportunities and new markets with circular economy approaches. Very simple fact, but I cannot get tired of highlighting it. More efficient resource use, less materials in designing your products and running your business also means less cost, right? Materials are a cost factor. So this just makes economic sense. And last but not least, it is also important, of course, to highlight the resilience factor. You know, while when you are able to create closed loops for your businesses, you really can create resilient value chains. You can reduce fluctuations in terms of resource quality. You know, if you recycle your own plastic, you know exactly what's in there, and you're also able to secure supply chains when there's international conflicts, for example. That's the first thing. So that's actually why circular impact is really not just circular, but environmental, social, and economic. So the second question is, of course, how can we actually create a circular impact? And like I said, yeah, in the end, we need to move more capital towards circular economy projects and circular economy solutions. But why are we not doing it? What is missing right now? I mean, the World Bank has said in their report, Squaring the Circle in 2020, that far more capital is needed to scale the circular economy and fully seize its opportunity. I mean, we will hear more about this also later, but I just want to touch on 3 things here very briefly. So what is actually missing? What I hear also working with the financial sector is there's actually quite some money available for certain projects. But what we see is there's just not the linkage being made between funders, capital, and the projects. So projects, sometimes they do not understand also that they are actually applicable for certain fundings. But we also see that the funders, they are not able to really create their pipeline and find the sustainable projects, while they actually have a lot of pressure, also because of new regulation, which we will hear about later. So the link is sometimes missing. What we also see, and that's especially what, of course, this network is also about, is that a lot of projects, because they're so innovative or because they're new, you know, there's no track record, they really need to become investment ready. They need to be supported in getting, I mean, sometimes the technical feasibility up to speed, but also just like the financials. A last point that I also hear again and again from the financial sector is that they are still working with old risk models often, right? risk models that do not take into account the linear risks. So the risks, like I just said, I mean, supply risks, but also maybe regulatory risks and the risks of not being compliant in future and so on. So this is also a thing that we see often, and we think that also the financial sector really needs to start reconsidering their risk assessments. So that was the second point, why we need to, how we can actually create circular impact. And then very briefly, as the last point, is what we really need next. Is we need to measure impact. And what does measure impact? Why is it important? Because you can actually attract investment with measuring the impact. You know, so the more data is collected and the better you are able to really present what your impact is on social, environmental, and economic element, the easier it will be also to attract funding. Because in the end, the banks or other funders, they don't want to assess a business. They just want to have basically the proof, so they can channel their funds. So measuring in general, of course, is also just important to ensure that we are moving to the right end. It's also why we at Circular Economy, we present the Circularity Gap Report, so we can actually track what is happening. What is also important to understand for businesses, because I mean, we all know it can be very time and resource intensive to really collect the data, but the collected data is not a waste. It can also make your overall business activities more efficient, also more cost efficient, of course. Most importantly, I think for now, and also to kind of give already a bit of segue to the next speaker, is just the compliance will require the data soon anyway. So, you know, it's better to be ready right now. There's a lot of frameworks already out there. Starting to make use of them will help to attract funding in the end. And of course, just as the summary here is that, you know, the Circular Investment Readiness Network can help with all this. And, I think it's a great opportunity also that these two projects of Definite and Circular Invest are joining forces here. So just to very briefly summarize, right, the main takeaways, the circular economy, it's not just another thing, it's a systemic solution. You know, the circular economy serves environmental, social, and economic ambitions. Second, finance is crucial. If we want to speed up the circular transition, we need to increase the investment volume. Otherwise, we will not shift the needle. And third, we need to measure. We need to report, and we need to collect the data to really prove the impact, but also move more investments to the circular. And I think that's it from my side. If you're interested, reach out, and I'll hand it back over to you.
Wonderful. Very much, Marvin. Excellent introductory presentation of why we are here, what we're looking at. Now I would like to pass across to, as Marvin mentioned, another speaker from the European Commission, from DG FISMA, to Guido, who will talk us through some of these new structures that hopefully are going to move our finance in a more sustainable direction. So Guido, over to you.
The slide is...
They should be those worked eventually.
Okay. Hi everyone, and thank you for the invitation and for having me here. I think Marvin's presentation is really, as Simon was saying, very important actually, and framing the topic of today. So two things, my slides are not as nice as Marvin's slides. Maybe that's a skill I should improve. And of course, I'm here as more on the regulatory side and not, let's say, as an expert on circular economy. However, I think I want to show a bit our regulation, how it can support, in fact, those pillars that Marvin just presented. So how to attract financing, how to measure impact. So indeed, let me start just with a bit of background before I go into my presentation. So the background is what Marvin said. We know that to reach the objective, the environmental objective, and improve the economy, but more broadly, the environmental objective that we have in the European Green Deal, massive. We have estimated in the Commission that from 2021 to 2030, we need 7 billion euro more than it did from 2011 to 2020. So this shows the amount of investment that are needed for basically reaching our climate neutrality target. So what did the Commission put forward to support this investment framework? We have set up a sustainable finance agenda since 2018 with our first action plan. And today I can say that our framework is not completed, but is actually quite comprehensive. I think even among the most comprehensive framework in the world for sustainable finance. On what it consists, I would say two big aspects: transparency and the financing instrument. So on the transparency side, we have basically regulation for all the investment chain. We have the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which replaces the non-financial reporting directive, but I will come back to it in slight more detail shortly. But we also have the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation. So while the CSRD here is for companies reporting, non-financial company reporting, we have the Sustainable Finance Disclosure, who actually sets rules for transparency for financial market participants who will have to report both at the entity level, for instance, on their sustainability risk, the way that they manage the sustainability risk, but also on the financial product level. Then we have the second layer that I mentioned, which is the instruments or tools. One I want to insist on, in fact, for companies to raise sustainable, let's say, finance, is the European Green Bond Standard, which is actually linked to the taxonomy. So in the use of proceed for the green bond standard, you need to refer also to the EU taxonomy, and I will come back to the taxonomy later. So we have the transparency and we have the instrument. So coming back to the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, so it basically defines sustainability reporting rules for all large companies and all listed companies. So that's the biggest thing. When we amended the NFRD and transform it, let's say, in the CSRD, now all listed companies, included listed SMEs, but not micro enterprises, will have to report on sustainability factors. This reporting has a so-called double materiality perspective, which we believe is very important because it will allow companies not only to measure the impacts that the externalities, so the environmental factor, can have on their business, but also what impact the activity of the company has on the environment. So this double materiality perspective is for the European Commission a very crucial element of that was already in the effort in the CSRD. So how does the, let's say, reporting indicators are set? They are set through what we call the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, and the Commission, as maybe you know, has adopted 12 sector-agnostic reporting standards in July 2023, and these standards present clearly an opportunity for companies, as I was saying, to comprehensively evaluate their impact, risk, and opportunities through very essential lenses, which are, for instance, climate aspect, pollution aspect, biodiversity, but in fact also circular economy. So here, before this presentation, I went a bit more into the circular economy aspect, as this is, let's say, what interests us today. And for instance, in terms of metrics and targets, this standard for circular economy include the increase of circular product design, including, for instance, design for the durability, repairability, and recyclability of product design, the increase of circular material use rate, and the minimization of primary raw material. And here, I think I can also refer to what Marvin was saying in his presentation. So the indicators and to measure this impact are actually really tailored to having this circularity well embedded. So the CSRD also, of course, foreseen now assurance audit report. So now I come to the EU taxonomy. The EU taxonomy has been really the, let's say, flagship of the sustainable finance agenda, the regulation that somehow also attracted a lot of interest from companies, financial and non-financial companies, as it covers both. So we have adopted the regulation in 2020. What is the EU taxonomy? So the EU taxonomy is what we call a classification system that outlines as to when an economic activity can be considered environmentally sustainable. why we have created new taxonomy. The reason why the Commission has created new taxonomy is to ensure an harmonization of definition on what can be considered environmental sustainable. That was not an attempt for the Commission to micromanage the market at all. On the contrary, the moment where we decided to do the taxonomy is because there was actually a request from the market, even the financial sector, to have more harmonized definition. This in turn would also allow company to prevent greenwashing, and that's also a very important element, because all we have to comply with the same definition of what is green because of the taxonomy. I think the taxonomy also helps companies in their transition pathway, because it sets actually the direction of travel through this performance criteria, which I will then briefly touch upon. So it is a tool also for helping company to transition. Maybe one specification is that the taxonomy is not a mandatory list of activities where investors need to invest. It's great transparency. Companies report on their alignment with the taxonomy, and investors can, if they want to invest in those companies, have a certain percentage of their portfolio that include those investments. So it's not mandatory, but it's an opportunity. So the taxonomy was adopted in stages. Here I will be brief. We started with the Climate Delegated Act, which looked at climate objective, climate change mitigation, adaptation. And then in June 2023, we have adopted the Environmental Delegated Act, which looks at other environmental objectives, pollution, circular economy, biodiversity, for instance. Now, this slide shows you the sectoral coverage of the taxonomy. So here we have all the sectors that are presented in this slide. So you can see from manufacturing, energy, buildings. Now on circular economy, we have actually many activities that contribute to circular economy, mainly in the building sector, construction, renovations, for instance. We have a full sector, the sector of services, that target the objective of circular economy. So this is the coverage of the two delegated act in this slide that you have here. So in line with the ESRS, the taxonomy performance criteria for circular economy actually reflect the need for economic activity to promote efficient use of resources, to appropriate reuse and recycling of resources. For giving you some example of how the performance criteria of the taxonomy tackle circular economy, we have the different stages: the design, the production phase, the use phase. In the design and production phase, for instance, the operators has to take into account the long-term value retention and waste reduction of the product over its life cycle. During its use phase, the product should be subject to maintenance to extend its life while reducing the amount of waste. And finally, the product should be dismantled or treated after its use to ensure that it can be reused or recycled for the manufacturing of another product. So this is, in general, how the criteria for circular economy are set in certain activities, for instance, in the services sector activity. And the taxonomy obviously is not a final list. It will be updated. New activities will be added over time as the revision of the Delegated Act take place. So here we have it's a slide that shows you the disclosure framework. So as mentioned earlier, the taxonomy is not a mandatory list for investor. The only thing that is mandatory on the taxonomy is the reporting requirement. So the companies, all who have to report, the companies that are under the scope of the CSRD, and they have to report the percentage of their revenue or of their capital expenditure or their operational expenditure that are aligned with the taxonomy. And financial market participants that are under the scope of the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation also have to disclose the extent to which their products are aligned with the taxonomy. For financial market participants, same thing, there is flexibility. You don't have to have 100% of your portfolio that is aligned to taxonomy. You can have a minimum percentage. So this shows that it's really a transparency tool. Companies can report as a way of opportunity. Now, an overview of the disclosure timeline. This is maybe a bit technical, so I can briefly touch upon So the companies in 2024 non-financial undertaking and financial undertaking falling in the scope of the previous NFRD have to disclose their first year of alignment with the EU taxonomy. Now with the CSRD, also not only large undertaking with more than 500 employees, but also will have to report, but also other company in the stages approach. As of 2026 for year 2025, other large company that meet 2 over 3 criteria will have to report. The three criteria are 20 million euro balance sheet, 40 million more than 40 million euro net turnover, and more than 250 employees. As of 2027 for year 2026, listed SMEs will have to report, but they also have an opt-out opportunity in the case they can report later, so first year reporting 2029. With the new Environmental Delegated Act, the disclosure obligation for non-financial and financial undertaking are being delayed. 2024 for year 2023, non-financial will have to report taxonomy eligibility, and in 2025 alignment. And financial will have to report on taxonomy alignment in 2026 for 2025. The difference eligibility of alignment, eligibility is when your activity is included in the delegated act. Alignment is when your activity is aligned with the criteria of the EU taxonomy. So now what's coming next? What is important here is 2 aspects. The Commission is aware that this set of measures are very new for the market, that there is a lot of learning curve to be achieved in order to know how to report on taxonomy, not only for the companies that have to dig out all this information and provide the data, but also for auditors to verify the data. So we are very much working also on supporting the companies. We're working on set of FAQs. We are asking our platform of experts to work on the usability aspect of certain criteria for which feedback shows that they might not work as intended. And we are also working on adding new activities. A big strand of work will also be on implementation, where the Commission will provide concrete guidance on how companies can gather the evidence to comply with the taxonomy criteria. And with this, I can close my presentation.
Guido, that was a really very helpful, clear presentation of what can be quite an intimidatingly complex subject. But hopefully, yeah, this provides a framework that really is going to drive finance towards where we need it to go, which I think is really encouraging, really interesting to see. I think we're running a little bit behind schedule. So the idea was to have 1 or 2 questions, but maybe we will collect the questions, and if there is time later in the session today, we can come back for questions to either Marvin or Guido. You can also, of course, ask your questions online, and we will collect those and see if there's a possibility for us to come back to those later. But now we want to pass across to a very interesting part of the session. We have 2 online presentations from the 2 case studies, which mentioned before. I'm not sure how we need to do this. Maybe Alina is going to take over as our technical expert, but first we're going to pass across to Matter Industries. So Alina.
I'm going to kick us off. So I'm Michael Smith. I'm a general partner, co-founder of Regeneration.
Michael, sorry, one moment. We can't hear very well at the moment. We're trying to turn up the microphone. Second.
Can you hear me?
Not loudly.
Are you able to hear me?
We can only hear very, very faintly, I'm afraid. Can you try again, Michael?
Yeah, I'm checking my settings. Adam, do you want to jump and I'll feed back in?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, can you guys hear me okay?
Adam, we can hear you completely fine. So, Michael, I guess it must be something to do with the microphone setting your end. So maybe you could have a look at that and Adam can kick it off.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think I can hear you, Michael. It's just really super quiet. So it's either going to be a loud morning in the Smith house. So from my side, hello and welcome. My name is Adam Roots. I'm the founder and CEO of Matter. So Matter is a microplastic technology company. So we focus on the capture, harvest, and the recycling of micropollution. I'm joined here with Michael Smith, who's the founder of Regeneration VC, who will be likely introducing me in that regard, but it's nice to have to play the other way around.
And Adam, can you hear me now? Am I better?
Yeah, this is all grand. This is all grand.
Woo, I'm back. I'm back. So Adam, excited to have the conversation with you here today and talk more about Matter. Just as quick backdrop, I'm a general partner, co-founder of Regeneration. We're an early stage venture capital fund investing in the circular economy around consumer industries. So apparel, packaging, food, all the things we touch on a daily basis are massive contributors to global emissions. They create a lot of chemicals with biodiversity impacts, which we're going to get to in a second. Marvin had some amazing points earlier on the lack of connectivity between capital markets and opportunities that exist in the circular economy. And we're here to try to solve that at an early stage. So we get involved at seed, Series A, early on, and then we bring our resources and team together to help scale up solutions. We met Adam and we're really blown away by the technology and the way he was applying it and really applying circular thinking through. So Adam got a chance to introduce himself just now, but Adam, can you talk a little bit more about Matter and the problem that you're solving?
Sure. I'm going to hopefully see if I can take over. So give me 2 seconds while I bring over. But as I mentioned before, my name's Adam Root, and fundamentally Matter as a business focuses on the capture, the harvest, and the recycling of micropollution. So hopefully you guys should be able to see my screen as I bring this up here. So just to give a very brief overview of the problem we're solving, I think this is a fantastic video which kind of gives a bit of a indication about what the challenge is that we face. Let me bring that over here. So what we have on the screen, hopefully you guys should be able to see this, is showing polystyrene entering the digestive tract of zooplankton and phytoplankton. So we work very, very heavily on micropollution, and this is it really happening in the real world, if you like. So we have 3 major challenges that we see with microplastic and micropollution. There's predicted to be over 171 trillion pieces of plastic in our oceans today. So that is more pieces of plastic in our oceans than there are stars in our galaxy. When you think about that number, you think how large it is. It's quite daunting to kind of think, okay, what does that look like? Where does that come from? What are the levels of that? And effectively, the major source of this comes from synthetic textiles. Around 60% by number comes from synthetic textiles. And is it entering our natural environment? So we see it as ingestion. As here, it takes up space in the stomach, stops the organisms from growing so big. There's a chemical challenge where things like PFAS is very common in the US. People talking about forever chemicals attaching to these particles, then get into the fatty tissue of the animals. And also, most importantly, from a legislation perspective, it's been found in our bodies ourselves. We found it in our blood, we found it on our lungs, and we also found that these chemicals and the micropollution can breach the blood-brain barrier, causing cancer, changing our DNA, changing reproduction rates. It's pretty tough stuff. And we've basically built a business around solving these challenges.
So, Adam, tell us how the circular economy applies to the solution and how you approach that capture.
Sure. So Matter as a business is focused on 4 major areas. We really have a big part of our business is based around laundry. So there's new regulation coming in the EU, which basically looks at all the different sources of micropollution and tries to put preventative measures in place. We've developed some of the most advanced technology in the world for capturing small particles with low energy consumption. So we can do 80% of very high efficiency filtration for 10% of the energy. And that allows you to basically extract the material from water or air. Then you have the opportunity to do something with it. So most filtration technologies will capture the material, and they will do that in a way where they embed it into the filtration technology itself. So one of the one of the major applications we're really focusing right now is thinking about textiles production. And this is really how we are looking at textiles as a challenge. So we take this 3-step approach where we kind of identify the problem, we cap the problem, and then extract the value. And that extracting the value really is based on understanding exactly what is in the facilities and what that looks like. So we come and we do an assessment program looking at what is in the facility, and then we can tell them what the value is of that material, like how short the fiber is, how many fibers they have, and then we can develop a system to capture that and then return it back to the supplier to in-house, where they'll be able to do look at how they could really utilize that value.
So Adam, where do you see Matter going next? It's clear that you can handle fibers. You have a unit for washing machines to capture at home. You're talking about textile production. Where does this go, and how big can this get in terms of gathering these microplastics?
Sure. So fundamentally for us, we're really thinking about, like, these are the major sort of steps along the way that we're kind of looking at right now. We mentioned laundry. So we have this, as Michael mentioned, we have a domestic offering where you can capture microplastic from your home. So this product is called Gulp, that will plug into your washing machine at home, and you will be able to capture your microplastic from the washing machine. We've integrated that inside the washing machine. So looking at capturing the material inside the machine at a domestic level. We're moving into the commercial space. So scaling out into commercial laundry, which moves us from, there's around 240 grams of microplastic comes out of a domestic washing machine a year. Commercial laundry is around, as an average, they're around 36 kilos of material. So it's a big step up. The textiles factories you went to, the first one we went to saw 370 tons of microplastic entering the natural environment every day. So we're really chasing the impact, but also we're looking at this in a lot more data here. So this is an example of some of the stuff that we're pulling out of the facilities now, really understanding exactly what's going on in the material, and therefore you can start talking about what the value is for these customers. So I'm super excited about this, and this is something that we're kind of moving into, is really looking about how a factory that's producing 10 tons of material, it's costing them money to dispose of any material in their facility. We can then turn that into a revenue stream for those guys. So that's really where it starts to become really exciting for me, is not just make this a regulatory driven product, but how do I add value to our customers and people that we work with.
Yeah, that's something that got us incredibly switched on, is how you were thinking about integrating circularity through your whole process. How you were using cradle to cradle and still do standards across the materials that are going in, where these are being used, and what ends up with the microplastics in terms of reuse, disposal, other. Can you talk a little bit about how you quantify that impact, and also the links to biodiversity and carbon?
Sure. I'll touch the carbon point first, I think, and then maybe we can then jump into a little bit about what we're doing. So this is, people talk about carbon and biodiversity, and I think one of the things that's really kind of misunderstood is our oceans represent the largest sequestration of carbon on the planet. They produce a majority of the world's oxygen. So I'm super passionate about really kind of highlighting the issue that we talk a lot about planting trees and the stuff that we have on land, but our oceans are very this carbon sink is really at risk here. So when you're adding huge amounts of pollution into things like the zooplankton, phytoplankton, it breaks down this carbon pump of how we're sequestering carbon. We're seeing acidification in the ocean and overfishing and the pollution piece. So the challenge here is to increase biodiversity by reducing the pathogens and pollutions that's running off the land. Mix that with better fishing practices. You have an opportunity for recovery in this space where the ocean could then absorb more CO2 and help us in the fight against climate crisis. So we really take this really seriously in our business. So there's a little snapshot of our 2023 impact report, which will be released in the next couple of weeks. But we look at 5 major areas. And these 5 major areas are from cradle to cradle, which my understanding is the foundational piece of circular economy. And one of the reasons we really wanted to work with Michael is, Regen VC having the connection here with Bill McDonough, from who was the co-authors of the book. This is like fundamental to the way that we exist as a business. So we look at 5 major pillars: material health, material circularity, energy stewardship, water stewardship, and social fairness. And we heard a couple of these earlier today about how social fairness is really important, but I think you need to look across all 5 sectors to really understand your footprint and therefore your impact. So this is a small example of the way that we look at our business here when we're kind of measuring and monitoring. So we're looking at the footprint of what that looks like, of like things that are the things that we're going to kind of consume as a business, our scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, and then how do we kind of have that as an impact perspective. So we do a lot of stuff at the minute where we're working with a couple of different organizations to try to improve quality of biodiversity in different areas. But we're also looking at how do we monitor and kind of capture our microplastic and then turn that into value.
That was amazing. And
we're going to have to move on, I think. So if you could wrap up.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Adam, for sharing more about what you're doing. It's really inspiring and exciting, and can learn more. Where can folks learn more about you?
Sure. We have a new website launching at the end of the week. We're matter.industries, and you can check out our first product, gulp.online, to come check out more on our website. Get in touch with me on LinkedIn. Love to hear what you guys are working on, and all the good work that way.
Fantastic. Adam, Michael, thank you very much for really an inspiring presentation and exactly on topic for what we're looking at today, how impact and measuring impact is helping investors to invest in the right place effectively. But anyway, unfortunately, we don't have time for questions. We're going to have to move on directly to our next interesting example from Ghana this time. I believe we have 3 speakers with us. If this is correct, our Ghana speakers, MEC Ghana Online. We should have Angeline, Karina, and Sun, I believe.
That's correct. Hello.
So hi. We'll pass it.
My screen.
We can see your screen.
It's fine.
It's not on the presenter mode yet. Perfect. So over to you.
Can you see my screen? No.
So whose screen is this?
No. Before, and it worked.
We could see your presentation. It's now disappeared again, unfortunately. Let's try one more time.
Karine, if it doesn't work, then I'll take over.
Or we can share it.
We could also share at this end if that's easier. Yeah. Oh, okay, we can see.
You got it there, right?
Yep, we can see the presentation.
Yeah, but we can't see it online. Yeah, we can.
Yeah,
we can.
Could be seen online as well.
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful.
So
I can't see the people in the room right now. I can only see the presentation. Okay, so let me start. My name is Karin Oberweis. I'm part of the team of the Ghana project. We are architects in Luxembourg, a Dutch foundation where we have CIRN presenting later as well, and Rick, and we have a local partner, Marigold, in Ghana. The project is funded by the Luxembourg government, supported by the Luxembourg agency LuxDev, and Angeline will be speaking as well. later with us. Can you see the next screen, introduction? Or do you have to click through?
No, we still see the opening. Now it's introduction.
Yeah, we have the introduction. It's good.
Okay, wonderful. So like we said, the project location is in Ghana, a sub-Saharan country with a strong economic growth and a rampant demographic development. Until 2050, we expect the population to meet the 50 million benchmark. And bear in mind, 2010, this number was below 20 million. So, and let's face it, all these people need food, homes, and they will create waste. And when you then know that approximately 70% of the materials for the construction sector are imported, you can only imagine the social and environmental disaster if nothing changes. And as well, the great opportunity we identified to explore producing material then locally in Ghana. Our project in 2 words would be we turn agricultural waste, in our case specifically now cocoa, into eco-friendly building material. And by doing so, we reduce the dependency on imported material then, and we also reduce the agricultural waste. So as an intro, I can say by turning waste into valuable resources, we aim to provide affordable housing solutions and reduce environmental risk associated with the traditional materials as we know them. And we contribute to a sustainable future and a resilient economy. And then I give over to Sam. We'll go to the next slide, which says impact, if you can see that.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I am amazed and also thankful for all of you to be here. It's also an honor to be recognized as like a front runner and as a showcase example. We are just doing the work, and then getting this acknowledgement is quite special. There's many SDGs that we could provide a score on. So we developed over the years, we developed a framework to actually understand in each region or country and even residual stream that we work on, how to calculate that impact. And we started doing that because our investors started asking for it. Now that has become more and more mainstream and also part of the public investment requirements. And for the Ghana project, we will then be focusing on 3 specific SDGs that you see on the screen here. And I will focus on how that moves through the supply chain to see how we realize that impact. So when we move into a country, we start with a residual stream. In this case, we focused on what byproducts are created in cocoa production. And cocoa husk and cocoa shell are mostly underutilized resources. So we started dialing in on those. Can we prevent the waste while still thinking about soil health? So part of that material needs to go back into the soil in order to keep the soil healthy, but too much will cause either fermentation, burning, etc. So taking and buying a part of that resource from farmers, we create additional income from those farmers or for those farmers. And by developing a new material, we are able to capture that carbon in the material. So we are then also replacing existing toxic materials like MDF and plywood. We are preventing those materials from being imported from outside of Ghana. So we reduce those emissions of logistics. And in that way, we make sure that we build like a very local circular economy. So we both have the production in Ghana, but we also create a local market. So our challenge was, can we develop a material that's accepted in the local market, not just as a material, but as a product application? And what you see in the pictures is that we created partitioning wall systems. So in 1 year time frame, we went from residual stream, defining it, through R&D, testing with technology, all the way through creating a partitioning wall system. And especially for like this first part of doing a feasibility study, it's proven very hard to attract investment because everything is insecure and unsure. We cannot make promises at the beginning of the year that we will be able to make a profitable business case. But we have been supported by the Luxembourg government to actually bridge that gap. So with this, I would like to hand over to Angeline of LuxDev, who have supported us with the business partnership facility.
Thank you very much, Sam. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to speak today. I'm Angeline, the project manager for the Business Partnership Facility at LuxDev. LuxDev is a Luxembourg Development Cooperation Agency, which developed 3 instruments for private sector engagement to co-finance innovative and impactful solutions from the private sector. Can you change the slide, Karin or Sam? I don't know who is sharing. But I'll continue speaking, no worries. So we have the Business Partnership Facility, which is the one before. The Business Partnership Facility, which aims to support impactful and innovative partnership between companies from Europe and from developing countries. And we have the Challenge Fund that is more for early stage companies from developing countries that have already developed an MVP or tested their product on the market. And we have the Demonstration Fund that is also targeting companies in developing countries, but that are more mature and ready to scale their innovative and impactful projects. Our vision is that we need the private sector to drive the innovation for SDGs. We really believe in that. However, we saw that there is a gap of funding since only 70 to 90% of social enterprises are able to raise capital. That's why we want to co-invest along the missing middle, meaning that we aim to support impact-driven businesses to make them investment ready for traditional investments. We want to contribute in maturing investment pipeline, targeting pioneers for innovative and impactful solutions. So through our instruments, we supported projects in different sectors of impact, but of course, circularity is very interesting for us as we see that it's very key for resilience and risk mitigation. And there's also a 4.1 billion markets that could be developed between now and 2030. So a lot of impact and some market development opportunity as well. And for impact, we see that circularity is also an employment creation motor and sustainability that allows to reduce waste generation and CO2 emission. And we expect circularity projects to have a proven benefit on the most vulnerable population. Can we move to next slide? Yep, great. So last year, we co-financed a feasibility study, both technical and commercial feasibility study with different partners, so the architecture agency COCA, but also MIC and multiple partners in Ghana as well. What we really found interesting and what we liked about this project is that they identify clear development problems. Building material scarcity, large availability of unused, not used coca residuals. So this is really interesting because they really were able to explain and showcase with concrete figures the magnitude and trends of the problem. Then they also developed an impact valuation. They demonstrate concretely how the project will have an impact on the reduction of carbon emission, job creation, number of people accessing local, affordable, and low-emission building materials. They propose measurable impact indicators, which is crucial for us. And finally, we saw that even if it's a feasibility study, like a first step, it was the first step for a bigger project. And they were able also to demonstrate that they had the willingness to have viability with like a really relevant partnership and expertise. The willingness also to generate some revenue and to also involve many different partners and actors, and maybe to inspire other additional initiatives. And finally, it's also a very innovative project and key for resilience and adaptation to future trends. Now we'll hand it off to you, San and Karin, to continue.
I'm afraid we're going to have to do this quite quickly because we're running out of time a little bit, but yeah, back over to you, Sam.
All right, then I will skip this slide and I will focus on the next slide to just give an understanding of where we currently stand. So we have been able to create a material and a business case for affordable housing. So how to have a partitioning wall system. We've worked together with value chain partners like chocolate producers who are now interested in becoming buyers. So we take their waste stream, turn it into a material that they will then implement in building schools in Ghana which they have to do anyway to give back to the country for extracting cocoa beans. So we built this closed loop system. And where we currently stand is that, yes, we now know exactly what we want to build in Ghana, and we also know how it will work on a financial level. And we are going to the next phase of actually moving out of this feasibility and into implementation. So we're attracting the first buyers, and we're actively looking for the next step of funding and finance to realize production locally. With that, I think we can move to the next slide where we included, because I don't think that we have time for Q&A, there is an executive summary available for the report. So if you scan the QR code, we're happy to send it to you. It will lead to like an email client. And from there, we would love to get you on board to get into like mass scale production of this material and product application. Okay, I hope I have been able to then decrease the time frame a little bit and hand over back to the organizers. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sam, Karina. Another really inspiring presentation, and I'm very sorry to have to cut that short as this was extremely interesting content. Again, a very clear example of how an interesting, innovative circular economy solution is able to demonstrate its impact, and through that to try to generate financing and investment. And we wish you every success with the future development of this project, of course, as well. So thank you very much for that. We're now going to move on to our final session for this afternoon, but for this morning, sorry, completely messed. And hopefully this will be an opportunity for you guys to also join in an interactive session. And this is based around another interesting, innovative circular solution, the Circular Library Network. And I'd like to invite both Anna and Amy to come to the front.
Okay. Yes, so first, a very brief introduction for me. I'm Evie. I'm very happy to be here. I work with the National Technical University of Athens, which is one of the partners in the Definite CCRI project. And we have met along the way of this very interesting project. Anna and the project she is going to present to us, the Circular Library Network, which now the floor is yours.
So my name is Anna. I'm the CEO and founder of the Circular Library Network. We started originally as a tool library, and then as well as every other tool library and library things around the world burn out because it becomes a job when most tool libraries around the world are run by volunteers. So we decided to automate the system. And when I automated in Reykjavik and we start growing and being part with collaborating with the city, then I start getting flooded with requests from other tool libraries and other libraries across Europe and Australia and the US and Canada. And we decided, okay, then now we're going to be a tech company. And we start developing and doing R&D for a self-checkout inventory management system. What we decided to do is to create something that is completely modular and very scalable and is managed locally, which means that generally speaking, we don't take any revenue from the final user, the person borrowing the item. We just provide infrastructure. And we do that in a way that is completely secular, by allowing our clients to build their systems using from IKEA furniture all the way to their own design. And this makes it very simple. So we have a few case studies here. We have locations in Germany, locations in Geneva, in Canada, in the US, and in Iceland. We have 12 locations live in total right now. We're expecting to open 55 more this year. And as you can see, they all look slightly different. And this is the beauty of it, is that our clients can do whatever they want from it. We give them a design, say, hey, you can use ours, or you can go and do it yourself. Everything that we do is white label. Everything that we do is open, closed open source. So we also created a social platform for our clients so they can have peer-to-peer support. So that way, best practices in Germany can be applied within Canada, and we can have that open discussion of what can be used and how people should be using the system. This allows us to have a strength in the community and to grow the projects in a way that is actually systematically effective, which is instead of thinking of monopolizing, we decided to decentralize. So it's the think global but act local concept. And I feel very wary of saying this stuff because Regeneration invested in our competitor, so I don't want to be giving away our secrets to them here, because it's a very interesting, because they are approaching from a B2C and we do a B2B and B2Gov sort of system. And we have had great success so far. We have increased foot traffic in libraries, which is increasing coming to libraries. We also increased their membership numbers. Don't know if you guys know much, but libraries are not doing particularly great. There's a lot of funding being cut from libraries because of the inactiveness of it. And this allows them to actually increase their foot traffic. We also have great results from our final users in Iceland. We manage the projects ourselves, so we also have an NGO focused on circular economy that manage the two library system within the libraries, and they had great success so far within the system. And we are continually optimizing and doing more tests and so on. So the product right now we call it Valdis, which is the standard setup, and then we have new iterations coming up within the next year.
And yeah, we can move slightly to some, because we need also to catch up with the time, to a slightly more interactive part that we have prepared, which is in a Mentimeter setup. You can scan the QR code or
you're not showing the right slides.
Wow, this is on you guys. I have no idea. Is another?
The Teams.
Yeah, it's a different QR code. Apologies.
Or they can use the code on top.
Okay, and then you can use the code on top or logging in if you go on the online version rather than just scanning the code.
Nothing happens. No, it's good. Are you all in? Yes.
So we would like to see your take in this question, and we can comment on that. What key aspects should be considered in assessing the positive impacts generated by the project Anna just presented to us?
Could you read out the code on top, please?
77269012. We have there's no scalability is the first word is repeated. So maybe we'll go with that. So we built this ideally with the aim of scaling, because I personally don't think that people know communities better than they know themselves. So it'd be very patronizing of me to go to a community and say, hey, this is what you should be borrowing. Here's a system. Let me make some money out of it. It doesn't really work that way. Communities are very much driven about knowing each other, knowing what they need personally. And if you think of yourself, you want someone telling you what you should be renting or buying or borrowing. Not really. You should be able to interact with that. And you can only do that at a local level. You can't really do that at a monopoly level. Like, you don't have that accessibility of knowledge. I think reuse is another one, absolutely. So we in Iceland, we have over 2,000 items in our system, and we haven't bought any of it. What we do is we gather items that people thrown away, we refurbish them and make sure that they are in good condition to be able to borrow out. We have a maintenance system installed in our software, so when people return an item and it's broken, they can let us know it needs maintenance. They receive an email asking them, hey, what happened to it? We receive an email saying, hey, this needs repairing, and the item's automatically taken out of the inventory. So no one can borrow the item while it's under maintenance. These are all things that we did by knowing the community that we're selling to. You know, together, the team, we have 27 years experience in libraries of things and tool libraries. One of our investors from a very early stage is MyTurn, which is a software for lending libraries. It's the original software for lending libraries that was started in one of the first ever tool libraries and libraries of things in Seattle 25 years ago. So when it comes to community-driven and social impact, those two are very linked together. And those who think that they're not, because I have had conversations with the competition landscape is very small, right? So we get to kind of know each other and talk to each other about what we are trying to achieve differently. And some of them are very much on the concept that they don't think that the community is going to be the key feature for building their system. And for me, that's great, because that's the opposite of what I believe. I think community and the social impact is a huge thing. You shouldn't have to buy a new item. You can just collectively join from the community to build the systems. So a university, you can provide that from the students, or a housing association, you can provide that from the people living in the housing building, and so on.
And yeah, I think also durability and cost effectiveness are key concepts in the project, because they also highlight how we can extend the life cycle of items that otherwise would be thrown away and replaced by new ones. So we give a second opportunity and the third to new items. You give us.
It's already including yourself. But that's where the social platform is so effective, right? Because we can have shared best practices, and we know exactly what works and what doesn't work, and can interact within the social community on the social platform between the project leads to understand better how they can do this as a better job. I think people said cost effectiveness and profitability. Yeah, it is kind of like, to me, is an obvious thing. It's going to be eventually a profitable business model. Is going to take us maybe longer than the normal VC runway is, which is why it's so difficult for us right now gather the investments that we need to scale this up. So we are looking to financial alternatives, because it's really hard. I've been working on this for almost 7 years now, on and off, and I have investors coming and wanting huge chunks of the company for money, and I have done this with no money. So it's kind of like, it feels a little bit unfair at that stage that we have put so much effort as a team to build this up. So for those who are interested, we have so far raised 360,000 euros in R&D grants, and we're hoping to raise another 300,000 this year. So the grant system, the funding system for innovation, is a huge part of the reason why this project works. But on and on again, when we get the response from the grants that they provide us, the main reason that they want to grant us is not because that they think there's going to be profitable or there's going to be a viable product, is because they want to see the social impact change, which is interesting, because these are R&D people, you know, people that are really thinking through the system that we are building. They're like, yeah, we believe. My dad has a quote that said, I don't believe in what you're doing, but I believe you can do it. And that is kind of how we run this. Yeah. Yeah.
How do we change the mentality?
Well, yep.
Yeah, and now you can vote among these 4 questions that we can reflect. Do you want us to read them aloud? Yeah, it's the first one is how to measure the circularity of projects. The second one is what are the main challenges in breaking into the market? Yes. How can impact be measured when the project is not yet operational? And how to measure the circular?
No, it was how relevant, how relevant the measuring of attractors for it. Whoa, calm down there.
It means that they read it already.
Okay, you guys, yeah, you do the voting. We'll just be here. Okay, how can impact? Ooh. Okay, right. So I think we'll start with how can impact measure measured when the project's not yet operational? That's a great question. So right now in our software system, we have CO2 emission calculator. I have some background in life cycle assessment, and we'll be doing a database for items, basically. It's a very superficial database. It's not in-depth enough at this stage because we don't have the funding to be able to do the in-depth research at that point. But we can calculate right now the emissions saved versus the emissions bought from items borrowed versus owned. And it's about 6.2 kilograms average per item. So we can calculate based on the amount of borrows that we have had, which is over 3,500 items borrowed during the last 3 years, of the emissions saved from those borrows. So that's one aspect of it, but that is still at this stage, I am not comfortable with it. It feels to me on the borderline of the brainwashing because we don't have the solid data to finish it. Once we have that properly done and the database properly created and developed, then we'll be able to do it. It's also not completely accurate at this stage because we calculate every time an item was borrowed, and that's not the reality, right? So every time one person borrowed one item, that is the only time that that calculation should be counted, not the time that they borrowed the second time around. Because if you owned, you only really create the emissions one time, right? So there is a lot of nuance of how to calculate that sort of stuff that needs to be implemented. And then
Maybe a quick comment on what are the main challenges in breaking into the market. I mean, I will say a few guesses and you can confirm, firsthand.
Yeah.
Maybe how to adapt into shifting to more and more items included in the patent, and how you can maximize your reach out in regions that you haven't yet.
See, that's not my problem. That's my client's problem.
Okay.
See, this is where it gets confusing. Because I only provide infrastructure, my real challenge is to go to procurement systems. So a lot of cities create procurements to be able to implement projects. It takes about 6 months to a year to get those procurements done. So right now we're looking in alternatives. We are potentially working with Revive. Those who are in Belgium, I know them. They are a construction company and they do have focus on sustainability, and we aim to implement our systems in their buildings. So there's lots of alternatives of how to get that, but right now financial is the main issue and the proof of concept. So the fact that we don't have enough data is the fact that we can't get in first place. But is a whole, to me, it's kind of obvious that there is a social impact, that there is a financial impact, and there is an ecological impact. But a lot of people need the proof, and there is not enough research on those areas to be able to justify it. Yeah.
Yes, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So would you say that one main challenge is also actually showing the investor the impact already because it's not measured enough yet?
Yeah, because there is no standardization. This is why when the opportunity came to participate on Definite, I work a lot with policies in Iceland as well and helping right to repair policies. So when it came to it, I was like, oh, I get to help shape the potential of how due diligence are done within circular economy. This is a great opportunity to be part of that. Because at the end of the day, we have to be part of the conversation if we actually want to have the change happening. And I do think that that is a big issue, is to really justify. People know that they should be doing it, they just don't know why. And then when it comes to financial decisions, they don't know how to justify that.
Yes, maybe one question. Wouldn't green public procurement be one? Yeah.
Yeah, it would be great. But you know how hard it is to get? It's like 3% of funding that people get the funding for that sort of stuff.
No, I mean to have your solution as one solution for those that want to carry out and implement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah.
Thank you. There is no question. That is the observation. Everyone should listen.
And, the other question is, for those not coming from the public sector, but large enterprises that want to show in their sustainability reports, are we doing something? To have them maybe on a not for free base join your platform and carry out their.
So there is a conversation they had where we're talking right now with like student housing and real estate companies. When we talk to them, the main thing is that we want to finalize our CO2 emission data validation and then create carbon credits out of that so they can then use that against them for themselves. That's going to take a bit longer and more money. It's just a question of right now. So I didn't know anything about investment until last year, and then I kind of deep dive to try and figure out how to go about this. And what I learned was that the VC world is just not made for circular economy right now. I know that regeneration is taking a big step and challenging the status quo, but they still have a 6 to 7 year fund. To do impact for something like this for 6 to 7 years is too short. It's just, for me, it's too short. So I right now have spoken to many VCs where I have said, don't take VC money. Please don't take VC money, because they think that that will impair the actual project. So we do need to find different alternatives or create. Why are we sticking to this box? Why we don't create new ways of investing? There is a really cool investment methodology called FPPA, which is a company called Veld, which is they do like women's products out of seaweed. They managed to raise quite a lot of money on this, and it's a future FPPA, future partnership for profit, something. Look it up. And basically, is an agreement with the investor that they'll get their money back, and then they get a seat on the table, so they can then help the companies there. So they say, if you take money from the company, you don't have a say. If you keep money in the company, you have a say. So it's a different form of investment, and there are new alternatives coming up, but it's still very difficult. So right now we are raising an angel round just so we can fulfill our sale pipeline, and it's the aim is to eventually, hopefully, get investment from a bank or a bank loan, because with the VC side of it, the compromise is to, I can speed things up. It's like trying to hire 2 pregnant women to give birth in 6 months. Right? It's just not going to happen. Just because you're putting more money on it doesn't mean that it's going to speed up the process, right? So that's kind of the analogy that I came up with. Anyone have any more questions? Yes.
And I think we are also.
We are at time. Yeah. Exactly at 10 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, both of you, for a really interesting presentation and an insight into some of the struggles that you're having. And again, presenting a different type of case from the other 2 examples that we've seen, a different type of financial model and financing instrument that's underlying that as well. But of course, we wish you every success, and hopefully the support you're getting in Definite as well will help to give that the kick to the next level with the development of the company. Okay, so you will share the last slide. Okay, my technical wizard assistant is going to help me out again.
Okay, still sharing the slides.
Yes.
What I found remarkable is that we had 2 examples with entities outside of Europe, VC or the funded entity. Does this support measure really actively engage international collaboration? Many things in Brussels are very European.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the 2 projects which we presented is Circular Invest and Definite CCI are European funded projects, but it doesn't restrict it solely to the EU. This is the EU plus the associated countries that are able to also participate in this program, provide assistance. The network itself is open to all. So we're not restricting membership with this, of course, even though there is European funding behind it. Anyone is welcome to join with this. Because, of course, all sorts of different companies of different scales and different necessities to expand into different geographical regions and financial institutions as well. So there's no specific restriction, but of course, European funding is underlying the whole process here. So, but yeah, and apologies, we haven't had more opportunity for questions from the audience. I'm sure, based on all of the very interesting presentations that we've had, there would have been a lot of comments to be made. Okay, but on that, I think we're going to have to bring our session to an end. I know there are many other sessions that are going on over the course of the day as well. Just quickly, before we finish, to mention that we have these 2 webinars coming up. So if you are interested in joining the network, you have the information, you've already received it at the beginning. This will also be shared with everybody. We have a webinar coming up in June on investment. We have another one later this year on pitching. And to mention once again, that the Circular Invest call is open until the 15th of September. So anyone interested, please have a look at that. And otherwise, any questions, you can bring them to us and we'll see if we can answer them offline as well. But thank you very much to all of our speakers today for some really interesting presentations. And thanks to all of our participants for being up so early and attentive to the session today. So thank you.